What first daughters go through. The moment Claire Walker stepped into the ornate halls of the White House, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. It wasn't that she wasn't used to the spotlight. After all, being the daughter of the first female president of the United States meant a life lived in the public eye. But as she stood in the grand marble foyer, surrounded by portraits of presidents past, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe mixed with apprehension. Her mother, President Eleanor Walker, was a trailblazer, the first woman to ever hold the office of the president. It had taken years of campaigning, countless debates, and an undying resilience to break through a glass ceiling that had once seemed unshatterable. And now, Claire was standing in the very place that symbolized all that her mother had worked for. But there was a part of her that resented it. Claire had been just 8 years old when her mother's campaign had begun. At first, it had been exciting. Late-night rallies, the smell of fresh ink from flyers, the sound of chants of "Eleanor for President." The Walker family had been close-knit, always sharing moments together, even in the chaos of running for office. But as the campaign had picked up steam, Claire's life had changed in ways she hadn't fully understood at the time. Her mother had become a public figure, her face plastered on billboards, news broadcasts, and magazine covers. Claire, once just an ordinary girl trying to navigate the challenges of middle school, found herself suddenly thrust into the spotlight. She was no longer just Claire Walker. She was the first daughter, a symbol of the family that would lead the country into an era of progress. And with that came expectations she didn't know how to handle. Every time she walked through a crowd, she felt the eyes on her, people whispering, judging. It wasn't just the press that made her uncomfortable. It was the pressure of knowing that everything she did reflected on her mother's image. If she wore the wrong clothes, if she made an offhand remark, if she skipped a public event, everything was scrutinized. She had to be perfect, polished, poised. It was a tightrope walk, balancing her own identity with the expectations placed on her by the world. In the beginning, Claire had tried to please everyone. She'd smiled for photos, attended state dinners, and made speeches that she didn't entirely understand. But as the years went by, the strain started to show. She grew distant, retreating into herself, finding solace in the quiet of her room rather than the chaos of the Oval Office. It wasn't that she didn't love her mother. Claire adored Eleanor. She was strong, smart, and had never let anything stand in the way of her dreams. But Claire couldn't help but feel like she had lost her own dreams in the process of trying to live up to her mother's legacy. She wanted to be a normal teenager, to hang out with her friends, to play soccer without worrying about cameras following her every move. But instead, she was thrust into meetings, state visits, and diplomatic dinners. When Claire was 17, the pressure finally became too much. She'd been pushed into the public eye for almost a decade, and she was tired. She wanted to break free from the golden cage she'd been placed in. So she did something radical. She told her mother that she wanted to attend a private school in New York, far from the prying eyes of Washington, D.C. "I need space, Mom," Claire had said, her voice trembling as she sat in the Oval Office, her mother's desk between them. "I need to find who I am without the cameras, without the crowds, without everyone watching me." Eleanor had been reluctant, of course. She had made her own sacrifices to get to where she was, and she understood the importance of duty. But ultimately, she had given Claire the freedom she needed, and so Claire packed her bags and left the White House, leaving behind the life she had known for a chance at something simpler. In New York, she found a sense of normalcy that she hadn't even realized she was craving. No one cared that she was the first daughter. No one asked her about her mother's policies or made her pose for photos. For the first time in years, Claire felt like she could breathe. She enrolled in a private school where she quickly made friends. They didn't know her mother was the president, and they didn't care. They just knew Claire as Claire, the girl who loved art, who was passionate about environmental issues, and who could talk for hours about the latest indie films. It was refreshing, liberating even,